Mud and rocks through several towns, sweeping away cars and flattening houses. More than 2,000 people have lost their homes. Rivers of mud swept with terrifying speed across the low-lying Campania region from Caserta, north of Naples, down to the coastal town of Salerno. Our foreign news correspondent Paul Davis reports from Salerno, one of the places worst hit.
The mud came without warning, washed down the mountainside by days of torrential rain. It started as a stream, but soon turned into a black, deadly river, engulfing everything in its path as it flowed down towards the small towns and villages at the foot of the mountains outside Naples. Most of the victims died in their flooded homes. This man was lucky, attracting the attention of the rescue teams. He was pulled from the mud just in time. A short time later, the Black River flowed over the building where he'd been sheltering. Many of his fellow villagers were not so fortunate. By late afternoon, as the death toll mounted, the authorities said they believed as many as 70 people were still missing. Many of them, they believed, buried alive in the town of Sarno. Police and army helicopters searched for survivors, shuttling between the devastated hillsides and an emergency medical base just outside Sarno. They were still retrieving people who'd been trapped by the mudslides, including patients from a Sarno hospital cut off by the flow. But hope for those still missing was fading fast. Thousands of families have been evacuated from their homes, but many returned to Sarno to watch the clear-up get underway, as nature, until now so destructive, at last relented. For the first time in 3 days, it has actually stopped raining, and the river of mud behind me has stopped flowing. But the authorities say it will be several more days before it's safe for people to return to their homes.
Ulster Unionists, critical of the Northern Ireland plate, his record-breaking walk. Scientists in the USA and Italy have observed the biggest blast of energy ever seen in the universe. Astronomers said the explosion would have far eclipsed a supernova, the explosion of a dying star, and would have been second only in energy to the Big Bang, the origin of the universe itself. Nick Valentine reports.
Astronomers at NASA's Washington headquarters have been describing the most powerful explosion since the event that created the universe itself.
The energy density in this explosion was as great as that in the Big Bang when it was only a millisecond old. And it's the greatest explosion since then.
It was first discovered last December, some 12 billion light-years away, as a spot of light between two galaxies. The fading of the light signaled a blast on a staggering scale.
If this event occurred on the far side of the galaxy, 60,000 light-years away, it would have been brighter than the sun, and that would have been in gamma rays. It is as bright as if you took all of the bright objects in the entire visible universe, put them together, and put them at that distance. It would be about that intensity.
Such a gamma-ray burst may be caused by rotating black holes, sapping up huge amounts of surrounding energy and releasing it in a burst so awesome they're now calling it a hypernova.
The word hypernova is probably appropriate. Yeah, in fact, for a few seconds, gamma-ray bursts can potentially outshine the whole universe. I find that sort of the most fascinating, thrilling aspect of this discovery.
The team believes such bursts may have occurred only about 1,000 times in the history of the universe. They hope this latest one will help them understand how stars are formed and the energy required to do that. Nick Valentine, ITN.
Now I look at the morning papers. The main front-page story correspondent Mark Webster reports.
Even for Russians numbed by a succession of brutal murders, this crime is particularly shocking. The victims were lured here during the night and murdered in cold blood, just for the value of their cars. Police raided this lock-up garage in a Moscow suburb and dug out 2 pits filled with sand and tarmacked over. Beneath were the victims who'd been persuaded to come out here after advertising their cars for sale in a local paper. Using this squalid hut, the men either shot or suffocated them. And though it's next to a busy railway line, even workers at the garage next door said they'd suspected nothing. 3 or 4 months ago, this man said, the gates were locked and they stopped working in the daytime. But in the night, There was plenty of activity, judging by the car tyres in the snow. Such is the growing demand for Western cars among Russia's new rich that 8,000 were stolen last year. But police said this gang was involved with the mafia and got desperate for cash, so they got less choosy. Sealed in by police, their last victim's car, a Russian-made Lada worth less than £1,000. What's more, these crimes were only uncovered because one of the murderers who worked here at the garage had left his telephone number on one of the victim's answer phones. Mark Webster, ITN, Moscow.